Hello and good day to all our
I
audience of Insight Sharing. I wish you have a wonderful day and thank you so much for tuning in. Today is a very fantastic day for me and Ha, and it's pretty much this unique thing we're gonna do for a day. Do you wanna know why? Because we're gonna meet the person who inspire us to bend time and thrive in 365 way to try a new things. And this is a new thing we are doing today. And we are so much pleasures and honor to meeting you, Mr. Ken Hughes. And he's well known as the global for the kings of the customer experience, internationally recognized for leading an experience for the consumer behavior. So it's not only amazing for his work, he's very generous to spend time with us. We are local people here. We are, nobody out there, but he's spending time with us and trying to support us for the communities that we are supporting on. So thank you so much, Kane, for joining our show today. And
you what?
how are you doing? Yeah.
I am very, very good. I'm on a week off tour, so I spend my time touring the world in between the States and Europe and Asia and Australia. And so this week I have a week at home at the desk, which is important. I try as much as I can to take maybe 1 week every 8 or 9 weeks, just turn it black in my diary. And so I spend, 5 days with myself at my desk, writing, thinking, walking. Without that time, I find it difficult to do what I do. So when you're on stage, it's an outbound energy all the time, and it's a beautiful feedback loop between the audience and me. But unless you take time for yourself, unless you take breaks, your creativity just runs dry. And so this week I'm at home in Ireland, and so I'm spending my time just writing and walking and thinking and talking to beautiful people. And so, it's important. I heard a beautiful story. Let me tell you a little story. There was two lumberjacks in the forest cutting down trees with their axes, and they started every morning at the same time, and they finished at the same time every evening. And they did the same work all day, except one lumberjack left the forest every day for an hour, just disappeared. And his colleague was wondering, like, where do you go every day? He was too polite to ask him, so he just kept working. And days went by. Every day this guy would put down his axe and, take off his jacket, and then he'd wander off with his axe and jacket into the forest, disappear for an hour and come back. And the frustrating thing was that he cut more trees than the guy who stayed. So the guy who stayed and worked all day, the other guy was cutting about 4 or 5 more trees every day than him. And he was getting frustrated because he was doing more work, but the other guy. And so after about 4 or 5 days, he asked him, he said, well, where are you going? Like, how come you're cutting more trees than me and you're taking this hour away? Where are you going? And he said, oh, I take my axe home. I take a break and I sharpen my axe. And I come back. And so this idea that like taking breaks is a bad thing. Like we're all stuck on this hamster wheel of output all the time, and work harder, work faster, work more. And it's a real danger, because unless you take the time and step back and give yourself the time to do nothing, to create, to think, then you're just a busy fool. You need to sharpen your axe, and you need to find the time in your life to sharpen the axe. And it's one of my concerns about the next generation, Gen Alpha, the younger Gen Z kids, who, when we grew up, we were bored. We didn't have a smartphone. We didn't have that many TV channels. And so into that boredom, into that nothing, you had to create something to do, didn't you? You had to go out on the street and find friends and play. You had to take a page out and draw. You had to make jigsaws. You had to, you did things. Your mind was forced into creating something from the nothing through the boredom and the stillness. Whereas today, every single person, including the three of us on this call, the moment you're bored or is sitting in the doctor's waiting room or sitting on the toilet, your phone comes out. You don't let your brain ever just relax into nothing. And in the nothing is the amazing. That's where the the space is for creativity. That's where the space is for philosophical thinking, for problem solving. It's not going to come scrolling on TikTok and Instagram. And so I think silence and space, giving yourself permission to take breaks, and being, creating boundaries around your work, around your clients, around your boss, for yourself is important. And they're important conversations to have. I don't know how we got onto that. Anyway, I'm fine. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken, for sharing. And you travel the world doing keynotes, right? Have you been traveled to Vietnam and doing keynote in this country before?
I have never been invited to Vietnam, and I'm hoping that will all change after this conversation. No, I haven't, and I was due to travel personally to Vietnam a few years ago, just for pleasure. And where was I? I was in Sydney doing a performance, and I was going to take some vacation time. And I've been to Thailand, and and Vietnam has been on my list for many years. And I was about to get on a plane to come and do kind of 2 weeks, and then you had this huge storm. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to Vietnam. The weather was really bad for 2 weeks, so I went to Fiji instead. I apologize, but I had a lovely time in Fiji. But yeah, it's still on my list. It's still on my list of places to go for personal pleasure, but also, yeah, I've never been for business. So let's hope that changes.
Yeah. So you now you have a new family, new friends in this beautiful
Good.
country. So if if we can make it happen, if you can make it happen on personal trip also to travel here, let us know, and we would love to take you and your family around town. Okay.
I certainly will.
And for the a little taste of our culture, Ken, it's going to be a very honor if our audience can have you to do a little introduce about yourself and the works you are doing. Would you please do it for our audience, please?
Yeah, I wear several hats, I suppose. So the first thing, I'm a consumer behavioralist. So I'm fascinated by the science and the psychology of consumer decision making, how consumers buy, where they buy, and how we can make them buy more. I'm evil. So I work with lots of brands all over the world, helping them understand the new consumer, what consumers value, and how we as businesses then can add value to their lives by reflecting those values back at them. So I do a lot of work in the customer experience space, the employment experience space. And then at the same time, I also do a lot of innovation and creativity work. So also really interested in what makes us creative. How can we, because every business wants innovation, every business wants to succeed, but how do you train that? Like, how do you make people creative? You can do a little bit of it through recruitment, but actually it's the personal responsibility of everybody to be more creative. So I'm fascinated by creativity, by innovation. I also do a lot of work with high performance individuals all over the world. So high performance athletes, entertainers, politicians, helping them with their lives and their goals. So I do a lot of personal development work. And again, I love that. I'm passionate about change, about helping people cope with the challenges that they have, and unlocking their inner potential. So I do a lot of that work. And then I'm very interested in the wellness space and mental health, in wellness, in the spirit, in the soul, and using those things in the business world. There's been this divide for too long that work is over here, and then there's all these other things like holistically, your mental health, your wellness, your spirit, and that's separate from work. And this is nonsense. Like, we are one person, and so I'm quite interested in wellness, and where that can bring you in terms of creativity and innovation. So all these things work together in the end. I'm also a father. I have two beautiful children, a 16 and a 17-year-old, and I would define myself also with that quite a lot. I love being a father, and it's been one of my proudest things of my life, and I get great energy from that. So the way I work, I would travel for a week, I would tour, and then I come home for a week, and I'm daddy for a week with the kids. And so I kind of yo-yo between those two things. Yeah, that's a little bit of who I am.
Thank you. Every role that you are playing, you do it really, really well. And this show is to examine the journey that leading to what you are doing at the moment. Like you say, we need to take time to sharpen our axe, right? And then you take time, teach people to bend time. Our show is to help you to travel back in time, and have a review of the journey. So let's travel time together. Is that okay, Ken?
That's fine. Let's do it.
Alrighty. So when Vivian was little, her dream was to become a singer. and went on to stage and singing. My dream was to become an astronaut, wherein the suit and jumping different planets seems to be very cool. But neither of us has the chance to do what we wanted to be, to become. So we wanted to bring you all the way back to when you were little. What was your dream about yourself and the work you're gonna bring forward to this world, though?
Yeah, that's interesting. I remember a friend of my mother's bought me a motivational poster for my bedroom when I was maybe 8 or 10. And it was this phrase, it was just a picture of a dog, a husky dog, the dogs that pull a sled across snow. It was a picture of their bum, their ass.
Mm.
And it was from behind. And it said, if you're not the lead dog, your view will never change. So this idea that, if you're like the second or third dog, you spent your whole life looking at the asshole of the dog in front of you. That's your view for your whole life. And I remember I used to have that poster up at my desk, and all the time I was studying as a kid, I guess it kind of went into me about like, wow, like if you want to succeed, it's really up to you. Like you're the only person that has that. I mean, some people are lucky, of course, and you might succeed out of luck, but really, it takes work. And so I was always interested in business as a child. Not so much about the money, and still that's true today. It's not really about making money. So some entrepreneurs do it because they want to be successful, because they view success as wealth. They want the money to have the house, the car. To me, it was never really about the money. My mother tells a story of when I was 3. I stole all of her magazines, all her women's magazines from her bedroom. I put them into my little tractor, my little plastic tractor, and I cycled to all the houses next door, and I sold each magazine to the other mothers for 1 penny each. And my mother was curious to where all her magazines had gone. I thought it was so obvious. She had read the magazines, they were finished, so surely I could sell them to the other mothers and make money. And then I bought a bar of chocolate with the money, and that was like that was my first experience of, I don't remember this, but this was my first experience of you could do something, have an idea, execute the idea, and then have a
Mm.
benefit. The chocolate bar, like, wow. So I spent my entire life when I was 6, 8, 10 running small businesses. And it was never really about the money. It was about this idea, again, where I grew up was the countryside, and it was like a 30-minute walk to the nearest shop. So I would walk with a friend down the fields, buy some chocolate or ice creams, come back, and then sell those to the children in the houses around me, and I would sell them for more than I bought them for. This idea. And I was thought, I'm fooling them. They don't know that it's only like 10 cent in the shop, but I'm selling it for 12 cent. And so, and then with the profits, and you would do all this work all day, walking miles and miles, and you would only make, 10 cent. And then you would go back to the shop with the 10 cent and buy a chocolate bar, and you would have a free chocolate bar. I thought this was amazing. This thing I had discovered, that you could work, make money, and then with the money have a benefit. And so I spent my whole teenage years doing little businesses, cutting grass. I was a DJ. I was always looking for something to do. And it wasn't really about the money. It was just about the idea that you could make a business from nothing. You could just one day wake up and decide, I am going to start a teenage landscaping business. I'm going to cut grass every weekend. Or I'm going to be a DJ and just start buying records and be a DJ. And there was nothing stopping you. And to be fair, my parents were always extremely supportive, and to this day, I acknowledge their support in everything I did. Like when I decided to be a landscape guy, I just stole my father's lawnmower, and he never had his lawnmower again. He could never cut his grass. He had to buy a new lawnmower because his old lawnmower was always missing. And he never complained. He never said to me, "Son, where's my lawnmower?" Because he could see his son doing what he wanted to do. When I was a DJ, I used to take my mother's car all the time, and I would take the seats out of her tiny, tiny car to fit all the equipment into the car. So she would come home, and not only was her car missing, but all the seats of her car were in the hall of the house. And she was like, "Where's my car? Why are the seats of my car inside the house?" And yeah, they never complained. They always supported. So I mean, I think I always, and as a father, I try and do this too now. you know, you support your children's dreams no matter what they are. It doesn't matter if they're not going to work out. Doesn't matter if, you know, if they seem mad to you. If the child has energy and is showing energy about something, you support it. And so, yeah, I did that all my life, and eventually I did a business degree, of course. And then when I left university, in university, I discovered drama. So as a child, I was quite a nerd. I was very academic. I was very respectful to teachers, respectful to my parents, which of course in school makes you a bit nerdy. You know, I was never the cool kid. I was never the kid with the leather jacket and the cigarette. You know, I was the kid who was like doing his homework and getting his grades, and so in university then I discovered drama. I discovered acting. So I joined the Dramatic Society, and that was the first time I discovered that you could be somebody else. It was amazing. This weird moment where you could put on a coat of a character, and you could be that person for an hour or 2 hours. And I just suddenly loved this idea of performing, of being someone that you weren't, of being the baddie or being the hero, or you know, you could change every week, every month. And so I really fell in love with acting. I loved acting. And when I left university, and I started working in companies and organizations, I still was kind of torn between those two things. I thought, well, part of me wants to be a entrepreneur and executive, and I always knew I would run my own business. So I worked for various consulting companies, and as you do when you start out of college, but I always knew I would run my own business. But part of me as a young man, 23, 24, I also wanted to be an actor. I wanted to work on stage. I wanted to perform for a living. Unfortunately, there's no money in acting. It's difficult to even make a living, to live. I mean, obviously the 1% who make it, fantastic, but 99% never make it. And so I was thinking, ooh, so I did it for a hobby for about 10 years. I was on stage all the time in various plays. I did some screen acting. I did some movies, but always kind of as a hobby, as a part-time thing. And then I had to make a decision whether I would give up my business job and try and be an actor, or and I decided I would be intelligent. I enjoyed acting, but I realized I didn't have the X factor that you need. So for me to work as a character, I had to work and work and work, and I was good. Whereas when you went for an audition, and I tried a few auditions with other actors, there were some people who just have it, who have an amazing presence, and I felt I didn't have that. So I made the decision to start my own business, and I started a marketing agency, and then when I had children, I didn't have time for acting anymore. Then weirdly, when the children were about 6 or 7, a colleague of mine asked me I was working for my own marketing agency, and he asked me to present some findings at a conference. And so I thought, yeah, okay. So I went to a business conference, and I got onto the stage, and I presented the data that he had asked me to present for his company. But of course, it's a stage, and a stage is a stage, no matter where you are. I had done 10 years of acting training. I had done lots of courses. I had trained part-time as an actor at night. And so you have skills that you don't realize you have. And of course, I performed on stage, and people thought it was funny, and they thought it was interesting. And then I got asked to do another conference the next month, and another one, and another one, and another one. And as that took off, then my time at my agency was suffering because I didn't have time to run the agency so much. There was a year eventually where I did maybe 50% of time speaking on stage doing conferences. And then I started charging for it, and charging a bit more, a bit more, a bit more. And eventually I decided I would take 1 year off just to do speaking. Keynote speaking, and that was 12 years ago. And wow. I never went back. And what I realized, if I look back on growing up, and this is an interesting finding that is true of everybody, all the things you do all help you achieve what you achieve later in life. You just don't realize it at the time. So when I was that little teenager running those little businesses, being a DJ, on radio, also I was on radio as a teen in college, doing my acting. I thought I was just playing, but all those skills today I use for what I do now. And there's no way I could do what I do on stage without all that acting training, without being that DJ, without getting all that equipment into my mother's car. And so all those things, they all eventually line up to do one thing. And so now my dream, because you asked me what my dream was to be an actor. To spend my life performing on stage was my dream, and I do today. I didn't go down the Hollywood route of being an actor, you know, for the Oscars, but every day I step on stage and I engage an audience and we go on a journey, we tell stories, we laugh, we cry, and I get to perform. So I get to do what I do, and I get paid for it, which is nice because, to be honest, a lot of creative people, singers, dancers, actors, they get paid so little for what they do. I, on the other hand, charge the corporate market a lot of money to do what I do. And so, yeah, in a weird way, my dreams got to come true through kind of a different way of going about it. I still yearn for acting on theater, on stage. And so when my children are 16 and 17 now, so when they're gone to university and when I have a bit more time, I might return to theater acting. It's difficult with my schedule because my tour takes me all over the world all the time, so it's quite difficult to rehearse with a group of people. But yeah, my passion is performing, and I get to do it for a living. So my dreams got to come true, which is lovely.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks for sharing, Ken. You know, I want to bring you back to the time that you do so many things. You do gardening, you do the landscape, you do the DJ, you do a lot of things. You got the support from your parents. But normally, the society around us, we always, you know, the people tend to have a career and try to be good at one thing, right? So you do so many things at the time, and there's a lot of people will question about, you know, what is that Ken's going to be in the future, right? So what message did you receive from the environment, the neighborhood, the people in your circle of influence back then, about you and your future, though?
I don't think I ever felt limited. I mean, that thing you just said there about, like, you know, people have a career and they think that's what they need to do. I don't think I ever felt limited into a box. And in fact, I think most of us do live in a box. We make a cage for ourselves and we trap ourselves into a cage of, this is who I am, this is what I do. I think that's really dangerous. And I don't think I ever felt that. And I don't know, was it because, I mean, my parents had one job all their lives. They didn't change what they do. But I never felt you had to be one thing. I always thought you could be many things at the same time. And I remember this was very confusing for some. I remember I was working for a market research company before I started my own agency. And I was in a play. I was always in a play, and this was a thriller. It was a crazy play. In it, the character I played was a young gay playwright, and there was this big turning point in the play where you realized he was gay, and everything in the plot in the play all twisted on this moment. You think, oh my God, he's gay. So there was a big kiss. There was a gay kiss in the middle of it. The whole audience went, oh, I understand now. And so I had invited many of my clients. I'm not gay, but I had invited lots of my clients to come to this play. These corporate clients who had all used to corporate Ken in his suit being a consultant. And then they were looking at this actor Ken who was having this big gay kiss on a stage, and they were like, they couldn't, their little brains couldn't put these two people together. And I never understood that. I never understood that people want to put you in a box. And this is true of everybody. Everybody wants you in a box. This is who Has, this is who Vivian is, this is who they are. And I know that now. I know this is what their hobbies are. This is what they do at work. And I've never understood that, because life is this huge, beautiful kaleidoscope of colors and potential. And why would you pick one thing? Why would you decide this is who I am and this is who I'm going to be? And you're allowed to have goals and a future, of course, and a direction, but that's only one particular thread you could follow. So for me, like, I've never understood this idea of limits, of this is what you should be. So what I do now for a living, I love. In 10 years, will I be doing the same? I don't know. And again, when I wear all these different hats that I do in any given week or month, I love it, because I think, well, yeah, I want to be this person. I want to be that person. And so for some of my corporate clients, again, I start to pull them in, and I have them doing sound baths and walking barefoot on broken glass. And they're thinking, like, well, but how does this fit in with the customer experience guy? I think, yeah, well, I'm all these things. And so I think and as you found yourself in that time bending experiment, there's a beauty in challenging, every day. and thinking, well, what could be? This idea of like, what if? So
Mm.
I start most of my days and my hours with what if. Like,
Mm.
what if we do this? What if we do that? What if we try this? And there's no limits, really. The only limits that are there, but there are some legal limits, of course, but the only limits are really it's only yourself saying like, oh, this is what I should do. I won't do this because my family might think this of me, or I won't do this because maybe I won't make enough money, or I won't do this because, yeah, my friends will think it's odd. Yeah, be odd. Odd is
Mm.
good. I mean, people often say, oh, you're a bit weird. Yeah, thanks for the compliment. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who wants to be normal? Like that'd be awful. So yeah, weird is good. I mean, and I'm a big believer in play and mischief and risk and fear. I believe that we should let our children play with knives and fire. How else are they going to learn? This idea that we protect our children, we put them in a little safety box. No, forget it.
Mm.
And so I'm a big believer in discovery, in exploration, in adventure. These are all things that make life life.
Yep.
Living in a box certainly isn't what we are designed to do. And if other people want to live that life, that's okay. I mean, some people like to live a very safe, planned out, easy life. That's good for them. I don't need them to change, but for me, that's half a life.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot for sharing that. Ken, I want to bring you to the conference and note that your friend asked you to deliver some facts there. So what is his name? His or her name?
Declan Carroll. Carolyn. He runs a business in Ireland, and yeah, he was the first person to invite me onto a stage, and ever since I've gone back to his events a few times and presented for him now, because yeah, never forget where you come from. I mean, the people
Exactly.
that help you, the people that help you on the way up. There is an arrogance that creeps in and an ego to success. And a lot of people kind of think, oh, I'm too big for that now. Whereas I have often gone back to Declan and performed at his events as a thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Because you do acknowledge that people open doors for you. I mean, you walk through the door yourself. So it's partly your success, but the people who open those doors for you are the people that helped you. And every single one of those people, and there's probably a big long list of people that did that for me, I will always be able to understand they share a lot of my success.
So did you ever ask him that why did he ask you to be the person
Oh,
that
he just needed a speaker. he just needed some content to be filled. He had a gap. He had a gap in his agenda. No, he didn't see any particular. He didn't know I was an actor. He didn't know I was. That was a lucky coincidence. I was running a marketing agency. I had some good data. He had an audience that would appreciate the data. So we put those two things together. So yeah, he was. It wasn't a gift of sorts that he saw some talent in me. But then afterwards, the conferences I did afterwards, each audience I would present to, there was one or two people in the audience that were planning their event, and they would say, "Oh, he was good. Let's have him." And so then it becomes a self-fulfilling. And so eventually you realize, oh, because when you start in the conference industry, you don't realize it's an industry. You just think, oh well, I'm doing a presentation. And then you realize that no, people pay for good ones. Like there's a thing called a professional keynote speaker. I didn't know there was a thing called a professional keynote speaker. And so you think, oh, and then I met a guy who was a motivational speaker in Ireland, and we were doing an event together. One of the first events I ever did where I charged some money. And he asked me how much, we were having lunch afterwards, and he said, how much did you charge? And I told him, and he said, oh, it's way too low. He said, you need to increase that a lot. I said, really? He said, oh yeah, they won't value you unless you charge more. And I said, oh, okay. And so, and then I increased my prices by 4 times what I had charged, and then I got way more work, because suddenly, like, you were a real speaker because you were charging all this money, and then bit by bit I got agents, and I got a team. I built a team around me, and now there's a team of 4 of us who all support what I do. Yeah, we've built a beautiful brand. We have beautiful clients. I have great relationships with my agents. I travel. I get to have this fantastic job where I travel all over the world, meeting people every single week, inspiring storytelling, hearing about their challenges, their debates, challenge them about how they do their business, how they live their lives. It's fantastic. I mean, honestly, I would do it for free, but don't tell my clients that. Okay, good.
So Ken, bring you back to the 12 years ago when you decide to go to this journey full time. All right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then, like, it's a big risk for you to make a full time, onto keynotes, right? So at that moment, what did you tell yourself?
Yeah, good question. I think there was two things happening, or maybe three. Firstly, I don't think it was a huge risk in that I already had built a very successful marketing agency.
Mm.
And so I was able to kind of just, work less and build this one up more. So there was a slow transition. I didn't just like shut the agency down and then turn around tomorrow and start a new business and have this scary period in the middle. There was kind of probably a 2-year period where I was slowly phasing it out. So it wasn't that risky. The second one was my divorce with my ex-wife. And so around that time, my kids were 8 and 10. And so again, as I said earlier on, I really value fatherhood. I love being a father. And so at the time, my marketing agency was a busy business, of course, and it took a long time as the leader of that business to run the business. And I felt that heading into divorce, I wanted to spend time with my children. So we had joint custody arrangement. So the kids would be with my wife one week and me the next week. And when the kids were with me, I didn't want to be working like 9 to 5. I wanted to be dad. I wanted to be there when they came out of school. I wanted to do their homework with them. I wanted to have play with them. And as a dad, I love play and mischief. And we did all sorts of crazy things. We still do as children. So I was looking for a new way of working. And again, this goes back to being in a box. And I realized that by having a full-time professional speaking career, I could control my tour. So I could decide to do 100 gigs a year, 200 performances a year, 50 performances a year. I could decide. And so this way of working would mean that I could spend a week with my children. And then when the week I didn't have my children, I could go to America, go to Africa, go to Europe and perform. And so it was a beautiful way of kind of designing my life to give me the values that I wanted to achieve. So one of them was present parenting, be there for my children. And the other one was be that performer. And I could do both of these things in this job. So really that it was a very easy decision. So it wasn't going to be about the money I was going to earn or the lifestyle. It was about, this is a way where I can be fully present as a parent and don't have to worry about work during the week. So when I'm dad, I'm just dad. I check a few emails. They go to school, of course. I can do some work, but I will be there when they leave school or come home. I'll be here. And so, and now they're 16 and 17. Of course, they don't need me as much anymore. I barely see them sometimes. And they come with me now. Sometimes when I travel, they come to an event maybe, and then they watch dad perform. But for me, it was a decision around semi-retirement also, because I watched another TED talk years ago about retirement. I can't remember the guy who did it. A very, very famous talk. The idea of retirement is a really strange one, because you work for 40 years and you save a little bit of money all the time. Then you retire at 65, 70, when your body is tired, your mind is tired. You have this money now, but do you have the energy to travel and to live your passions and dreams? Probably not. You probably have a little bit less. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be a better idea to retire during your work life? Like retire every second week. So work a week and then retire the next week and don't work. And then work a week and don't work, and do it that way. And so I'm happy to work until I'm 80, but I would rather take these big breaks all the time. And so when my kids are with me, I don't work, and so I'm retired. And so I live my passions, my hobbies, take space, see my friends. And so, and also the way the speaker circuit works now, of course, not that many business conferences take place in July or August. So I'm always off for the summer. Same in December. It's kind of quite quiet around Christmas. So there's these
Mhm.
natural kind of 3 months of the year where it's quiet. So when it's quiet, I have a team, of course, and we get together, we do some strategy work. But yeah, I'll fly all the team and we'll go to Spain for 2 weeks, or we'll go on holidays for 2 weeks. We'll take time, you know. And again, going back to my opening remark, rest and time is really important. So I suppose my decision to start this Keynote business wasn't driven by ego. You know, look at me, I'm on stage. Or it wasn't driven by wealth. It was driven really by being present as a parent and by my desire, I suppose, to perform and my pleasure from performing. And I got to do it all that way.
Beautiful. I promised my speaking coach to ask a bizarre question for every speaker that join in our show. So a lot of our guests do keynotes, but international and global keynotes do it at the frequent that you are doing. We have very limited guests joining the show doing the same. So
Okay.
Ken, tell us a regular day for an international keynote speaker like you. How is the
Okay.
regular day be? Yeah.
Regular day. I live on a plane. So yeah, so I mean, I'll fly. I always fly in the day before. Very important. Even if it's a European gig that I could get to on the day, I will always travel the day before. It just makes the client happy. The client wants to know you're in the country you're performing in, that you're in the hotel, that you've arrived. So even if I'm speaking at the last thing at the day at 5 o'clock, it's tempting to fly in the morning, but I will always fly in the day before. And I will meet the client, meet the promoter, whoever has me in the country. I will get to bed early. I will not have any alcohol, very bad for the throat. So in my performing, I will always look after my throat. I get up early, I go to the gym. So I go to the gym at maybe 6:30 in the morning, and then I will do technical rehearsal at about 7:30 with the technical crew. So I have a very visual presentation, lots of music, lots of videos, and so there's usually about 30 minutes of technical rehearsal with the crew. Then I'll have some breakfast. I believe in having a good breakfast, and if I don't have breakfast, I get grumpy, because often once you start performing, you may not eat again until the end of the day. It can get very busy in the day, so I have a good breakfast. It's important to me, so I have a nice relaxing breakfast. I make time for that. Like, so there's a 30-minute slot that nobody can call me and nobody is allowed to speak to me. I get to have my breakfast. And then I do some interviews usually. So usually I do some interviews with magazines or podcasts, or whoever has me on site. So I'll do those after my breakfast. And then I will sit, and this is important for keynote speakers. Even if I'm talking at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I will always listen to at least 2 hours or 3 hours of content before me. So a lot of very successful keynote speakers only come in and arrive just for their part, and they come in, they perform, and they leave. I've never believed in that. I think it's very rude. A client is putting on an event. It's got a big 1 day, 2 day timeline, and the audience have listened to everything. And who are you to come in and deliver this performance without understanding what the last speaker has said or the speaker before has said? Because you should deliver what you're delivering within the context of the overall conversation. So I will spend about 2 hours in the arena or in the hall listening to other speakers. I will do my performance. Then I will meet, hopefully if I can, I will meet the delegates afterwards. Sometimes I have to go to the airport immediately and fly to the next location, but if I have time, I will then spend some time with the audience and do some selfies and do some conversation. And then generally you're in the car to the airport, and you fly to the next location and repeat. That's an average day.
Seems like a very busy average day for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a busy day, but I have a good team, and I'm not the one organizing the planes. I'm not the one organizing the interviews. My handlers are very good, and so I go from each piece to each piece with help, and it's a charmed life. I mean, it sounds a busy life, but it's a beautiful life. You're meeting beautiful people in the events. All the tech crew are amazingly skilled at what they do. The delegates are always really polite and friendly, and they'll challenge you on what you've said, and they'll debate, and that's great. The other speakers, you're always learning. I'm always at events learning, because I think it's very dangerous to think. There's an expression, if you think you're the smartest man in the room, it just means you're in the wrong room. You know, this idea that you know it all, what arrogance. So, you know, every time I go to an event, that's also why I listen to the speakers ahead of me and maybe after me, because they also have amazing stories and input. And so, because I work across all industries, I work with healthcare, technology, financial services, retail, you know, every industry. They all have different ways of looking at the world, different challenges. They all have common challenges. And so I'm always soaking up all this extra content. So people always ask me, where do you come up with your ideas? Well, it's because it's like a funnel. Like, as long as you're putting lots of things in the top all the time, always reading, always listening to podcasts, always watching TED Talks, always being at events, listening, that's the stuff in the funnel. And what comes out the other end, who knows? Yeah, it's just a big mix. But the day you stop putting things in the top, that's the day you stop being interesting or creative.
Beautiful. So since young age, you always reach out for that ideas, right? And up until now, you always open your reservoir for accepting ideas into that funnel. And to tell us, you know, how could you remain curious a little longer like that after many years like this?
Yeah, I think the TED Talk that you referred to earlier on was something that I did because I felt a little bit frustrated. I felt like I was developing a routine. My kids were very young, and I was kind of doing the same thing all the time, running my agency, and I felt stuck. You know, midlife crisis. Kind of felt stuck. And I thought, well, there must be more to life than this. I am curious, but I'm not. And so that's when I decided to challenge myself every day. And I thought, well, you know, if I could end every day by doing something new that I'd never ever done before, then maybe I can reawaken that curiosity. And it started off just as kind of a playful thing I was doing. But after, as you know, because you've lived it, after about 90 days, about 3 months, yeah, I physically nearly felt the click inside of me. My brain was never going to be the same again. And it hasn't. So like, it was a rewiring at a neurological level of opportunity. And it was like the scales falling from your eyes and realizing that the world is full of opportunity all around us. And the things that we take for granted, the things we see every day, we can just approach them in new ways continuously. And so that sense of curiosity, that sense of play, was reawoken in me. Now, did I have that? This is the nature nurture argument. I probably am partly like that anyway. So my nature is playful. My nature is curious. It's who I am as a person. I am an optimist. In fact, I'm an extreme optimist. You know, but then my parents, if I look back on it again, my parents are crazy people. Like, they always loved play. They would dress up in fancy dress and go to parties even when it wasn't fancy dress. Like, they would just appear in costume for no reason. They thought this was hilarious to, you know, and so they were people full of fun and play. And then in this house with my children, I'm the same. You know, we have continuous mischief and play and pranking, and that's who I am. And so that curiosity in me, I find it, and if I look at my friends who I've curated, because we all curate your friendship group in the end, the friends around me are all similar people. I don't really get on that well with people who just, you know, are serious or have one way of looking at the world. I like people who also don't like to live in boxes and who do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and are a little bit crazy. It gives me energy, you know. And so, yeah, I think I'll be one of those crazy old people in their 80s who are, you know, doing things that probably could kill them, because I think, yeah, why not? I'm nearly dead anyway. And so, yeah, I look forward to what is that expression? Is skidding sideways into my grave. You know, like, just, you know, like, I think that curiosity is it's a gift, obviously. So part of it was my nature, but part of it was my nurture, how I was brought up to be curious, to explore the world, and yeah, a world without limits, definitely. So I think we all could do with a reminder that, you know, there are no limits really, and it's up to you to decide how far you want to push things.
Ken, you ask, Vivian, you about to ask a question?
Yeah, think like beside the curiosity, I think you also save some time for thinking. And this is also one of journey to find a way, people's successful life. How do they think? How do they have the, ability to think different than the rest of the people? So since you're here, maybe you give us some tips, how you spend your time for thinking.
Yeah, I think definitely thinking, like creative thinking isn't something you can force. So I'm fascinated by like the corporate world and their desire to put everybody in a room to come up with a new product idea. Okay, go on, we need to be creative. Our competitors are more creative. Let's be creative. And then they do things like putting bean bags in the meeting rooms, or pool tables in the canteen. I mean, no one is going to sit down on a bean bag and have a wonderful idea just because it's not a chair. Like that's not the way it works. So like creativity comes from, I think, giving yourself permission to fail. I think we have a really unhealthy relationship with failure in society. So we celebrate success. So we all just watched the Oscars 2 nights ago, a celebration, a global celebration of success. And we watch the Olympics, and we applaud people when they stand on the podiums. But for the 3 people standing on the podium, there's 20 athletes over there with no medals.
Mhm.
And they get to stand on the podium because of all the failures they had, because they woke up at 6 a.m. every morning, at 5 a.m. and they trained and they failed. And so failure is your foundation for success. Nobody ever became successful without all the failures first. And so we have a very unhealthy relationship with failure in society. We don't celebrate failure. And the people who have been successful, generally, you hear things like fail fast. What fail fast means, it doesn't mean to fail. It means that if you fail, that you try again immediately. You try and change it. So you don't accept failure as a negative thing. You accept failure as a positive thing. And you say, okay, fantastic. Why did that fail? What can I learn? And have the energy to go again. Now that can be difficult when you fail 10 times in a row, and so the one that's always used is the Harry Potter books, and being refused 12 times before she was finally published. So this idea that somehow the ideas you may have aren't good enough, that you shouldn't say them. No. So if you ask me for like my tips, it's about execute every idea you have.
Mm.
Surround yourself with people who support that type of thinking. And if you find people in your life, be they friends or family or colleagues or bosses, that don't support creative thinking and risk taking, then get a different job, get a different friend, leave your relationships. You have to surround yourself with people who support that energy. They don't have to be like you. You don't have to be in a marriage or a relationship where your husband or wife is exactly like you, but they do have to support your creative energy and your risk taking and your curiosity. And so generally what I find is that people who are successful have done that. They've surrounded themselves with similar people. They found muses. And so the muse is a kind of an artistic idea, but also in business, you can have a muse. You can have a mentor or a muse who thinks, oh yeah, I like the way you think. And I'm going to listen to what you say. Our podcasts now are fantastic. You find someone who's got a podcast who inspires you, and listen to them every week. And they think, oh yeah, I like that. And so basically you're using their energy and you're folding into your own energy. And then, yeah, how do you come up with the ideas? I think you do need to put as much stuff into the funnel as you can. And so it's going to the events that you have no idea why you're going to this thing. And you think, oh, I'll go to this. And you might learn something. And it might be nothing, related to what you do. But then you think, oh, and you meet a whole new set of people and a whole new challenge, and you get your preconceptions challenged. And so, yeah, I mean, if you walk past a notice board and you see an event and you think, oh, well, that's not really for me, that's exactly why you should go for it. You should go to that. You should join that class. You should, because if you think it's not for you, well, then you'll stay in your little box all your life, won't you? So yeah, I mean, and during my TED talk, I was the only man at the Zumba dance class, and I was oh my God, I did so many things that were crazy. Lots of things I would never do again, but some of the things I met amazing people who I never would have met. And your own experiences must be the same. If you've done this for so long, you must have met so many people and had so many experiences that have changed you, challenged you, What can I ask you a question? Of all the things you've done during this journey, what are the one or two or three that stand out to you as the things that you probably would never have really done unless you had been pushed to do it and changed you for the better?
So say it again, please.
Of the things that you've done as a time bender, this idea of doing new things, pushing yourself past your comfort zone, have you ever done something and you've thought, wow, without the challenge, without the experiment, I would never have done that, and now I'm a different person. I'm a different person because of what's happened to me, or because of the person I've met, or because of the experience. Any stories?
Two stories. So one is a story with you. All right. So
Okay.
you are the prime example of a story that I want to demonstrate for the people in my network also. So when you focus, and then you have to be resilient, and then you need to be like the power of asking, just to keep asking and find a way creatively to ask, so see, I follow your works, and then from time to time I try to ask again, and then I got to know, and then ask again, and got to know and ask again until one day it happens, right? So that's one. The second one was writing a book together with my wife. All right. And that was inspired by my old, a person that I really admire. His name is Marshall Goldsmith. So he wrote a lot of beautiful books, right? And I always admire him as my book hero. But he seems to be really, really, off the league. It's really hard to get in touch. So one day I decided to send him an email and say, okay, I'm going to test to see whether or not he's going to respond, right? So I sent him an email, and then within a few hours, he sent an email back. And that's how we formed a relationship. So when he did the keynote in my country, so he spent the whole day with me and my wife for breakfast, for to see the tour and stuff. That is something that never thought that we would be able to do. And we tell our children from time to time that they need to try, and they need to find create way to expand the horizon. Otherwise nothing gonna happen if they keep doing the same thing over and over again, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. What about you, Vivian?
Yeah, similarly, we write the book together. I think both of us have very different opinions all the time. Comprehensively, sometimes just like oppositely. So writing a
Yeah.
book together was a huge experience for us. Throughout all the talk with the amazing people through this show, give us a lot of inspirations. Try to do different things every day, and
Okay.
you're one of our inspiration image to give us something that we normally should be doing. And then we remember, Ken, what if we do it differently? A little bit crazy, a little bit fun, but it's always memorable for us. So it's a
Yeah.
very, very fun activity to do together with our children. And the
Yeah.
fight seems to be more fun too.
And if you manage to write a book together and you're still married, that's quite a success. Well done.
And then I got that inspiration from David Dyer and Karen, his wife. So
Yeah.
they both wrote separately, and then Karen really likes this gentleman, so he said, "I'm gonna marry him so that we can write together." So she approached David, and then they became husband and wife, and they've been writing books together, very beautiful. So
Okay. That's excellent.
Ken, I know that we're reaching the time, of our conversation. So I'm going to have just one last question, and because a lot of people look at you as very successful keynote speaker, international keynote speaker, right? So if there is one thing only in your experience that there's many things, but you pick one thing for the listeners to focus, to improve, so that they can become a successful keynote speaker, what would that one thing be?
Okay. Storytelling. So I
Storytelling.
think I watch so many keynote speakers and they get confused about who they are. So they have content, everyone's got content and everyone's got something to say. But really, the best performers I have seen are the performers who can tell a story. And an audience won't remember graphs or data, they won't remember facts, but they will remember a story because a story makes you feel something. And so your job as a performer on the stage to connect with their emotions. And so the only way you can do that is tell stories. And so, when we opened this conversation, I told that story about the lumberjacks. We've had a 1-hour conversation, but somebody listening to this might just remember that sharpen the axe story. And because it's an easy, simple story, and so someday they'll be taking a break or about to take a break, and their boss will say, no time for break. And they'll say, hang on, I need to go and sharpen my axe. And so stories are very powerful because they stay in our minds. So as a speaker, you need to find whatever message you have to say, you need to find the stories that are emotive, entertaining, engaging, to be able to package your content into. So really, you should be getting onto the stage and telling 5 stories or 10 stories, and each story has a point and a message, but they should be stories, and that's how people remember. And the second thing I suppose I will say as speakers is that maybe stop calling yourself a speaker, because when you stand onto the stage, you're a performer. Whether you like it or not, you've taken onto a stage. You've stepped onto a stage, and there's lights, and there's microphones, and there's an audience. You are a performer. You may not be Taylor Swift, but you are a performer. And so you need to understand that puts a duty on you to entertain, to perform, to engage, to inspire. You're not coming out to do a speech. A speech is something that your father does at your wedding, or a speech is something that is kind of a two-dimensional thing. It's just like a press release statement. A performance is something that if you decide I'm a performer, then you suddenly realize, whoa, I have to up my game. So you've got to use your body, use your language, use props, use the stage, engage the audience as if they've bought a ticket to see you, which they have. Most people at an event, even if they haven't bought a ticket, even if it's an internal event for a company, by taking the time away from their job, that's their investment they've made. They've made an investment to take time to listen to you. That's a very precious thing that you need to take care of. They've given you their time, or they've given you their money. So now you need, in return, to perform for them so that they are inspired, engaged, excited, delighted, entertained, all those things. That's a duty that you have as a performer, and you should take that seriously. So you need to go back and look at your content, look at your slides, look at how you perform, watch your videos. It was Beyonce, actually. I was listening to an interview with Beyonce, and even though she's so successful, she still watches back each performance. Not the whole thing, but elements of each performance. Even still this day, gets the video, watches herself and thinks, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. And I will do that as much as I can. I'll get as much of my video feeds as I can. And when I'm on a plane, I'll watch last week's performance and I'll think, oh, didn't do that great. I could improve there. I could improve there. Never let your ego creep in to the point of, oh, my performance is fantastic. No, it can always be better. You owe your audience to be the best you can be. And that takes time and effort. And so, yeah, see yourself as a performer, see yourself as a storyteller. And once you do both of those things, your product instantly becomes much more solid as a product for a client to potentially buy.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And once again, we want to say thank you, Ken, for being so generous to spend an hour of your time on the week that you're supposed to be off and spend time to think and spend time with your children, right? And then now you spend time with us, so I really appreciate that. And I wish that one day we're going to be able to see you in person. If you travel to Vietnam, we would love to give you and your family a big hug, and then we're going to take you out to allow the people to join our show, okay?
Yeah, I look forward to that. Thank you for reaching out. Apologies it took you so many years. That's awful. I must have a chat to my team. But we do get lots of requests. But it was lovely. And as you're right, you're a good example of persistence and resilience. And I really enjoyed the chat. Loved seeing you both. Loved meeting you both. And definitely next time I'm in Vietnam, or the first time I'm in Vietnam, I will come and say hi.
Thank you very much.
All right. Excellent.
Have a beautiful day.
Have a great day. Lovely to talk to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, my friend. Yeah. Bye.